You're listening to the new media. You're listening to Mitchell Talks. Learn more at MitchellTalks.com and follow me, Scott Mitchell, on Twitter at Mitchell Talks. This is episode 10 of the All of the Above Energy Podcast on Mitchell Talks. We start this episode with the future of solar in Oklahoma and the electric vehicles that will follow. Then we move into how the public, media, and policymakers often fundamentally misunderstand the wind industry and the modern financial challenges of oil and gas producers. In this episode, recorded at Camps 1910, I began by asking Secretary Teague why Texas has raced out to a big lead over Oklahoma in solar projects. Texas has done a bunch of it, correct?
They have. I would say that we're just a little bit behind. I think there's people are seeing it, but the renewable energy companies were so focused on wind for so long, but now you're starting to see those same companies talk about solar and battery storage. And your question about batteries, it's the storage piece of this that could become that holy grail, right? I mean, the knock on renewables is that they're intermittent. You can't call on it whenever you need it. But if you could put it into a battery, then I mean that solves that problem. And so I think you'll see that coming in the next even just 3 or 4 years. We're going to see more solar. A couple of interesting conversations. And so when the wind tax credits were ended, the zero emissions tax credit was ended for wind, we specifically talked to the legislature and said, keep those for solar, for geothermal, for battery storage, for other technologies, because those really are infant technologies, and there's great opportunity there for us to take advantage of them. And then the other thing we've seen is that, more and more folks are starting to talk about impacts on the transportation sector and electric vehicles. And that's solar on your roof, battery in your garage, to a car. There's an engineering solution in there someplace. Somebody's going to figure it out. I'd love for that person to be sitting in Oklahoma and put not just their solution, but their manufacturing facility and their jobs right here in Oklahoma. Electric vehicles are coming. And electric vehicles are coming just like our iPhones, right? Because at some point, you and I are going to be the guys with the flip phones, and our kids are all going to go drive electric vehicles because they're fun, because they're cool, because all of the apps and the autonomous pieces of this that they're used to are going to be in their car. That's all coming. That's not just Jetsons. I mean, that truly is coming. It's not coming tomorrow. So I think folks hear electric vehicles, and some folks will kind of bow up. I'm never going to give up my pickup truck. Ford's going to roll a hybrid F-150 next year. I mean, you should buy what fits your need. I mean, we've had alternative fuel vehicles on our farms and ranches in this state forever, right? Propane has been out there for a long time.
Beats my home.
It's still there. Yeah. And folks still use it for the vehicle because it's the right fuel that matches their need. And that's what's going to continue the trend, right? And CNG is out there, and we've got more per capita filling stations in Oklahoma than any state in the country. And for the fleets that have converted to CNG, they're not going to convert to something else.
They're going to stay CNG.
They are, and we're seeing them all over the place.
Are we still converting them?
We are still converting some. I think the focus now is bigger vehicles. And so you see, UPS, trash trucks. The bus company up in Tulsa does not make a natural gas bus. They make a propane bus, and they're starting to make an electric vehicle bus because they decided, look, our market is going to be better served by propane and electric and a cleaner diesel as our three products. And we're going to continue to see all those changes. We're going to continue to see different models, and nobody's driving a single source. What we want is to provide the options. If somebody wants to have an electric vehicle, we should figure out from a policy standpoint, not from a financial standpoint, but what are the things that we could do to help get them a charging system or charging station for their vehicle. So we'll use the Volkswagen money for that. For CNG, we used tax credits. for both the infrastructure and the vehicles. I don't see us doing, I don't think we need the tax credits anymore for CNG or for electric vehicles as you go forward, because the market will drive it. But you do need the options of where you can fill these things up. It's amazing to me, and and to be honest, the fights that we've seen politically, and with the legislature the last couple of years around budget, those are fights about tax policy. Those are not fights about fuel. And it's one of the things in our office we were trying to really make that point is, look, we are an all-the-above state. And it is in Oklahoma's best interest if we truly are all the above. And it's all of those fuels. And so we would get wind companies that would come in and they would talk about the tax credits or about tax policy. And they would say, but, don't just label us as a renewable company because we're the number 1 or 2 purchaser of natural gas in this country. I mean, these are big, big companies. It's been interesting to watch on the oil and gas side, the super majors and, Statoil, Total, BP. I mean, at that really big level, they're also investing not just in oil and gas, but they're investing in renewables as well. We haven't seen that in the U.S. yet. I think it's coming. Really do. I also think it'll be interesting to see if, you talked about your experience on drilling vertical holes. I don't know, I truly don't know, long-term, the smaller independents in Oklahoma and how they fare with the massive cost of these big, long, lateral, horizontal wells. I just think that's a whole different, almost a different league of finance. But those same companies that in the past have been able to develop a small oil rig and well and a site, that's project development, which you could do the same thing with solar or battery storage. And so that same kind of spirit, I think, in Oklahoma, in our oil and gas history, really could have a different chapter. And I think it'd be really exciting for the state. But right now we're a little mired down and throwing rocks at each other. Media specifically and people in general are more enamored with the rock throwing than they are with understanding the details. Right? I mean, for somebody to say we should pull a rug out of a tax policy, a tax credit policy, whether that's for oil and gas or for wind, that's horrible as a state, right? The question that I would want somebody to be asking is, why didn't you think of this 5 years ago? Why weren't we having a conversation 5 years ago of, hey, we think our budget's going to look like this, we should start making changes, right? I think that's a hard question, and it's a really hard question to answer if you're in government. That's completely a fair question, right? The people of this state that's a question they should get an answer to. And I don't have to always be right. There was no way Mike Teague was going to forecast the price of oil and what it's done in the last 3 or 4 years. But government should be at least thinking of, okay, what happens if that price does this? What happens if the price does that? And, I was pleased to see Governor Stitz, at the last Board of Equalization say, all right, slow down a minute, right? This is not just about a bunch of blank checks. We fundamentally need to change how we've been doing things and how we're going to go forward. And I agree with that. And those, I think, are the hard questions that I wish the media would pound us with.
They went all in on $612 million, which we all know. Those who watch the bottom line know it ain't going to happen. But it was interesting the governor came in and held that press conference. Now Governor Stitt held a press conference and had the media kind of backing up and going, well, wait a minute, what's this about?
Right. Folks that are completely entrenched in their position, they're not moving. But we have the opportunity. And I think the revenues and the last Board of Equalization gives the state a little bit of breathing room. But back to the governor's comments of caution, if people immediately spend every penny of that money, don't make changes to the tax and finance structure long term, on both tax levels but also tax incentives and credits, and don't take a long-term approach to that, we're going to do this again. And maybe a little strangely, my background is much more water. I think of this the same way I do with drought, right? Drought's coming. It's going to happen again. The question is, do you prepare? Do you learn from the last time and do anything different? Or do you sing hallelujah that it started raining and we don't have to turn the sprinklers off in our front yard anymore, and we'll worry about that drought stuff when it gets here again? And that's why I say there's the opportunity, right? A truly long-term comprehensive look at where the state revenues come from and where the state budget goes to, I think would be really, really helpful. And I think the inexperience with that legislature, hopefully, then that's a bunch of new folks who can learn and aren't carrying a lot of scar tissue from last spring.
Tomorrow, the third installment of my conversation with Secretary Mike Teague. You're listening to the new media, the Mitchell Talks Network. Learn more at MitchellTalks.com and follow me, Scott Mitchell, on Twitter @MitchellTalks.